Emma Carter grew up in a small town in Ohio where the cornfields stretched endlessly and the nights were quiet enough to hear crickets whispering in the dark. From the outside, her life looked ordinary. She was 17, went to Lincoln High School, wore simple jeans and hoodies, and kept her brown hair tied in a loose ponytail. She sat in the third row of her classroom, never too close to the front, never too far in the back. Teachers described her as polite and quiet. Classmates described her as nice, I guess. No one ever used the word extraordinary. But Emma had a secret. Every afternoon, when the final school bell rang and the hallways flooded with laughter and noise, she would slip her headphones over her ears and walk home alone. Her house stood at the edge of town, an old wooden place with a wide porch and white paint peeling from the sides. It had belonged to her grandmother, who had passed away when Emma was 12. The house carried memories in its walls, and in the attic, it held something even more precious. A piano. It was old and slightly out of tune, its keys yellowed with age. Her grandmother had been a church pianist, known in town for her gentle smile and magical fingers. After her passing, no one had touched the piano. Emma's parents were always busy. Her father worked double shifts at a factory, and her mother managed a small grocery store. Music, to them, was something that played in the background of life, not something you chased. But to Emma, it was everything. She discovered her hidden talent by accident. One rainy afternoon, when she was 13, she wandered into the attic searching for a box of old photographs for a school project. The attic smelled of dust and cedarwood. Sunlight filtered through a tiny window, casting golden lines across the room. That's when she saw the piano under a white sheet. Curious, she pulled the sheet away. She pressed one key. The sound echoed softly, fragile but alive. She pressed another, then another. The notes stumbled at first, unsure and awkward. But something stirred inside her, a strange warmth in her chest. She sat down on the bench and let her fingers move freely. It felt like remembering something she had never learned. Her fingers found patterns. Simple melodies formed without effort. She didn't know the names of chords or scales, but her hands seemed to understand. The rain outside tapped against the roof, and Emma matched its rhythm instinctively. By the time her mother called her for dinner, she had created a melody so beautiful it made her own eyes fill with tears. That night, she couldn't sleep. From that day on, the attic became her secret world. Every afternoon, she would climb the narrow stairs and close the door behind her. The world below, homework, chores, expectations, faded away. Up there, she was not the quiet girl in the third row. She was a creator. She never told anyone. At school, she joined no music clubs. She avoided talent shows. Fear wrapped around her like a shadow. What if people laughed? What if they expected perfection? What if her gift wasn't real, and it was all just a dream she had imagined? So she practiced alone. Years passed, and her talent grew stronger. Without formal lessons, she learned by listening. She would play songs she heard on the radio, recreating them by ear. Soon, she began changing them, adding deeper harmonies, unexpected twists, emotional layers that made familiar tunes feel brand new. Music became her language. When she felt lonely, she played soft minor chords that trembled like unspoken words. When she felt angry, her fingers struck the keys with fierce intensity. When she felt hopeful, bright melodies danced across the attic walls. Her hidden talent was not just technical skill, it was emotion. Senior year arrived faster than she expected. College applications, future plans, and endless questions filled the air. Her best friend, Lily, dreamed of moving to New York. Other classmates talked about sports scholarships and business degrees. Emma smiled and nodded, but inside, she felt lost. Her father wanted her to study accounting, a stable career, he said. Her mother wanted her to stay close to home. Emma wanted something she couldn't even say out loud. One evening in October, Lincoln High School announced its annual Winter Arts Showcase. It was a big event. Students performed music, dance, theater, and visual art. The entire town attended. Colleges sometimes sent representatives to scout talent. Lily burst into excitement. Emma, you should do something. You're always writing in that notebook. Is it poetry? Emma quickly shut the notebook. It wasn't poetry. It was sheet music, her own compositions, carefully written late at night. I'm not that good, Emma whispered. You never know unless you try, Lily replied. The words lingered. That night, Emma climbed into the attic and sat at the piano. The moonlight spilled through the small window, illuminating the keys. She placed her fingers on them, but instead of playing her usual melodies, she hesitated. What if she performed? Her heart pounded just thinking about it. She imagined the auditorium lights, the silent crowd, the possibility of failure. Then she imagined something else, the chance to finally be seen. Her fingers began to move. What came out was different from anything she had ever played before. It started softly, like a whisper of doubt. Then it grew, layer by layer, building into a powerful surge of sound. It told a story without words, a story of fear, hope, and courage rising from silence. By the time she finished, tears streamed down her face. She knew. The next day, hands trembling, she signed her name on the audition sheet for the Winter Arts Showcase. The week before auditions felt endless. Doubt crept in constantly. During math class, she imagined forgetting the melody. During lunch, she pictured the judges shaking their heads. When the day arrived, she nearly turned around at the auditorium doors. Inside, students warmed up, guitar strings tuning, vocal scales echoing, nervous laughter bouncing off the walls. Emma's palms were sweaty. She felt small. When her name was called, the room seemed to shrink. She walked onto the stage. The piano on stage was newer than her grandmother's, its surface polished and shining. She sat down carefully. The judges, 3 teachers and a local musician, watched quietly. "What will you be performing?" one asked. "An original composition," Emma replied, her voice barely audible. "Original." The judge raised an eyebrow, surprised. Emma nodded. She closed her eyes. For a moment, everything disappeared, the judges, the lights, the fear. She imagined the attic, the dusty air, the moonlight, her grandmother's gentle smile. Then she played. The first notes were fragile, but steady. As the melody unfolded, something shifted. Her nervousness transformed into energy. The music flowed through her like a river breaking free from a dam. Her hands moved confidently, telling her story. The auditorium grew silent, completely silent. When she struck the final chord, the sound lingered in the air like a heartbeat. For 2 seconds, there was nothing. Then applause. Not polite clapping, but real, stunned applause. One of the judges leaned forward. "You wrote that yourself?" "Yes," Emma whispered. The local musician smiled. "You have something rare." Emma walked off stage in disbelief. A week later, the results were posted. Emma Carter, featured performer, finale act. She stared at the list, certain she had misread it. Finale act meant she would close the entire showcase. It meant the biggest audience. It meant pressure. It also meant opportunity. The night of the Winter Arts Showcase arrived cold and clear. Snow dusted the sidewalks outside the school. Inside, the auditorium buzzed with excitement. Parents filled the seats. Teachers moved nervously backstage. Emma stood behind the curtain, heart racing. She wore a simple blue dress her mother had helped her pick. Her parents sat in the 3rd row, unaware of the full extent of what they were about to witness. They knew she was performing, but they thought it was a small piece, nothing major. When the announcer called her name as the final act, a murmur spread through the crowd. Emma walked onto the stage. The spotlight felt warm against her face. She could barely see the audience beyond the bright light, but she sensed them, hundreds of eyes waiting. She took a deep breath. And she began. The music was stronger this time. Fuller. Alive. It carried every secret afternoon in the attic. Every fear she had swallowed. Every dream she had hidden. The melody rose and fell like waves, building into a powerful crescendo that seemed to shake the walls. In the 3rd row, her mother covered her mouth in shock. Her father leaned forward, eyes wide. They had never heard her play. Not like this. The final movement was bold and fearless. Emma no longer felt like the quiet girl from the 3rd row. She felt infinite. When the last note faded, there was a split second of stunned silence, then the entire auditorium rose to its feet. A standing ovation. Emma blinked, overwhelmed. The applause thundered around her. She saw Lily cheering wildly. She saw teachers smiling with pride. And she saw her parents, standing, clapping, tears in their eyes. After the show, people crowded around her. Compliments, questions, invitations. The local musician who had judged auditions approached her parents. "Your daughter should consider applying to the state conservatory," he said. "She has extraordinary potential." Her father looked at Emma differently that night. Not with expectations, but with respect. At home, instead of climbing quietly to the attic, she found her parents waiting in the living room. "Why didn't you tell us?" her mother asked gently. "I was afraid," Emma admitted. Her father placed a hand on her shoulder. "Afraid of what?" "That I wasn't good enough." He smiled softly. You were more than good enough. For the first time, Emma felt seen, not as the quiet girl, but as the musician she had always been inside. In the months that followed, she auditioned for music programs. She practiced openly now, no longer hiding in the attic. The piano downstairs was tuned and moved into the living room. Music filled the house daily. Her hidden talent was hidden no more. On graduation day, Emma stood at the podium as valedictorian, not because of her grades alone, but because of the impact she had made on the school community. In her speech, she said something simple. Sometimes the most powerful things about us are the ones we hide the longest. Don't wait for permission to become who you already are. That fall, she left Ohio for a prestigious music conservatory in Chicago, carrying her grandmother's sheet music and her own compositions in a worn leather folder. Years later, when Emma Carter performed in grand concert halls across the country, critics praised her emotional depth and originality. Audiences described her music as honest and transformative. But no matter how big the stage became, she never forgot the attic. The dust, the rain, the first trembling note, because that was where her hidden talent had found its voice. And that was where a quiet girl from a small town first dared to believe she was extraordinary.